Good morning. I'm Mark Kimball. I called to order the March 27th, 2025 meeting of the Citizens Clean Elections Commission. With that, we will take attendance. Commissioners, please identify yourselves for the record.
Christina Werther.
Caitlin Payton.
Amy Chin.
Commissioner Chan.
Yes, sorry, I think I stepped on you, but I'm here.
Okay, thank you. We have a quorum for the meeting. Item 2, discussion possible action on minutes for the February 27th, 2025 meeting. Commissioners, you have in the minutes from our February meeting in the packet. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of February 27, 2025.
Thank you, Commissioner Werther. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Payton. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes for the February 27, 2025 meeting. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Werther,
Aye.
Commissioner Payton,
Aye.
Commissioner Chan.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The minutes are approved 4-0. Item 3, discussion on possible action on the Executive Director's report. Tom?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This kind of a few news items we wanted to update you about. The first is, as you all know, Congressman Grijalva died earlier this month, and as a result, there will be a special election to fill his term. There'll be a primary and a general. The primary will be held on July 15th, and the general will be held on September 23rd. And that will be to fill the term through January 2027. CD7 has 6 different counties in it. And one of the things that Gina has already been working on with our colleagues at the with our debate administration is to start to put together a clean elections debate for the eligible candidates for that office. So that will be we'll have more news about that as we go forward. The next local election is May 20th. Alec is already hard at work updating the website for that. So we'll have you'll have a little bit of a logistical thing with 2 different election dates and managing all that. But Alec's ability to reach out to the localities for information about their elections is unparalleled. He's in many ways the best election reporter in the state. So and then I think the other thing I wanted to highlight, we have the highlights of some of the highlights of the President Trump's March 25th executive order on elections. A couple of key points. First, I think, from what's clean elections sort of role in this context, I think that, we are looking at this from a voter education perspective. We've already had some staff discussions about that, and we've been doing research about that. Some of the aspects of this order are without getting into sort of the policy basis, whether or not it's good or bad, it's sort of like there are a couple of different aspects of the order that I think are worth thinking about. And I kind of categorize them as procedural issues versus sort of substantive issues. On the procedures, the order, throughout the order, the president orders the Election Assistance Commission, which is a federal commission that works on supporting election officials around the country with technical advice and things like that. And they also administrate something called the federal form, which is this form that anybody can use in any state to submit to their state's election officials to register to vote. So it purports to order the EAC to do certain things and on a certain timeline. And so the first procedural sort of question is, and somewhat substantive too, is, are the things the order contemplates things that can be ordered? In other words, we'll talk more about the federal form in a second, but the National Voter Registration Act lays out a lot of parameters about the federal form to begin with, right? So an initial question is, is there does that statute sort of fill the field, and not allow for additional regulations, or can the AC even make those regulations? Next question, if they don't, what happens? That's been an argument you've seen with a number of different, quasi-independent or independent commissions with the White House over the course of the last 60 days or so. And then third, the federal form issues are supposed to go into place in 30 days. And I can't pretend to know the answer to this, but someone will look at whether or not that's administratively possible. Whether or not there's a notice period, any of those kinds of things that typically, like when we go through and we make a rule change, right? We have a calendar we have to operate under. So those are some of the procedural issues that are there. Substantively, I think the headline that you'll see in Arizona and around the country is that it takes this federal form and says to the EAC there ought to be a requirement to provide some documentary proof of citizenship along with the form. So, what does that mean? So NAVRA says we'll have a federal form that anybody around the country can pick up. They file it with their own election office, but it's a standard form. The instructions that go with that form come from the states. So, so if you're in Texas, you get the form, it's a form, and then there's a bunch of directions, and you find Texas, and you fill out what you're supposed to fill out for Texas or Arizona or whatever. This would say, no, in addition to whatever the state is saying, the federal government is going to say you need to provide this documentary proof of citizenship. Now, in Arizona, we had a law for 20 years that says you gotta do that anyways. Not the case around the country. We're the only state that really has there's a couple of states have it on the books, but we're the only state that really does that. So, and then what those documents are going to be. And the order's a little, there's already, as we've been tracking the discussion among policy experts and lawyers, there's some discussion about, what documents are going to fit and what are not. And that's something, for example, as we look at it for voter education purposes, we want to make sure we have that nailed down before we start, promulgating sort of a Q&A type of document on that's authoritative. Similarly, it would ask the AC to decertify certain election equipment when that's not been the EAC's practice. The EAC's regime currently would be that they create standards to which election-related equipment gets certified. They upgrade those standards. And in fact, they have upgraded those standards. I'm not sure that the equipment is actually there yet, but they never have said that the old standards don't count, right? It's been an upgrade, not a discontinuation. So that's a significant change in policy, which we'll see. Now, other things that are there's a directive that in federal elections, a state that collects ballots after election day that are postmarked before election day. So California is a big. That's why one of the reasons why California takes, a decade to count their votes is because. So this would say you can't do that, and there will be some penalty if you do. That doesn't affect Arizona because Arizona has a deadline of 7 p.m. on election day to return ballots, and it's a hard deadline. Similarly, there's a provision in there that says you have to have some kind of paper audit trail or some kind of everything documented on paper. Arizona uses paper ballots and has a verified paper audit trail. So again, we're already there on that. So I think there are groups, and with anything, and I can not to sort of lean into my own somewhat dated experience with this, but I'm involved in litigating this issue, and I think everybody who's ever worked at the Attorney General's office or at the Secretary's office has been in some way or another for the last 20 years, or the Governor's office. There are groups of folks who are less likely to have ready access to those kind of documents. That's been the reality. And the studies generally indicate that they're older people, younger people, folks who live in rural areas, and that kind of thing. So, that's a real thing. However, when we think about this, it's also important to bear in mind that, one hopes that what the rules are going to be gets established relatively quickly. That's what all folks in elections hope, and that we're able to communicate clearly and prepare people in a manner that is anybody from any party and anywhere can understand clearly what they're going to need to do.
I have a question.
Please, sorry.
Commissioner Payton?
So would this affect this new Grijalva election then?
Right. That's a good question. So I can say that the folks are looking at that and concerned about it. 30 days is a tight timeline to make those kind of changes as contemplated. So the number of voters who use the federal form to register to vote it's not a large number of voters. Most voters go through MVD, and and this all happens in the background, and they don't even know it, right? And then in CD7, there's some relatively, I don't remember the exact percentage, but there is a relatively small percentage of voters who are what we in Arizona call federal only voters. That is, they haven't yet provided documentary proof of citizenship. So one question folks will have to answer, and I have an instinct, but not an answer to, is, does this affect them, right, in some kind of way? The goal of most election administrators around the state has been to try to get federal only voters to provide documentary proof of citizenship so that they are full voters. But for federal purposes, and they're registered and they can vote in these elections, the thing's not expressly retroactive. So maybe not. And then that gets into Commissioner Payton, I think one of the procedural aspects of this, which is folks will litigate this, and maybe a lawsuit gets filed that says 30 days is too soon because we have this pending election. So whatever the impact is, it ought not go into place for this election in CD7.
Now, when I worked at the DES,
Yeah.
you had to be a U.S. citizen to apply and so on.
Right.
If people were born in Arizona, we could find that out
Yep.
easily. There was a database or whatever. If they were not born in Arizona, like Utah or somewhere else,
Yeah.
or obviously foreign countries, then we couldn't tell. So maybe that might help. I don't know.
Yeah, well, no, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Payton, that's exactly right. There are efforts made, and the legislature has directed election officials to make efforts to, confirm the citizenship of folks who have registered to vote. I think that, this order purports to make more information available to election officials at the federal level. There's a little debate I've seen about whether or not that's in fact possible in terms of the data that is available, but this has been an ongoing, in our 20 years in Arizona of doing this, getting access to those databases for this purpose has been a challenge for sure. I think the other thing you'll see written up about on this is that, there's a sort of and I don't know exactly how this will work, but there will be a review by the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, of voter lists. That's going to be done in conjunction with the Department of Homeland Security. The first Trump administration had a committee that attempted to do something along these lines that generated some controversy. So again, it's not clear yet how that'll work out. So I just want to really quick kind of conclude by saying, I think that our goal as staff will be to try to provide voters with the top line of, how does this affect me, if at all, right? And then the second line of, sort of, as much as we can, what else is going on here, but really with the idea that that there are going to be multiple audiences for a thing like this, right? There's a news media audience that really wants to get into the mechanics of election administration and how this is gonna mess with that there's an audience in the political sphere of sort of cheerleaders and folks who are really upset about this that is going to be part of that conversation as well. I think, and I hope I'm speaking on behalf of all of us on staff correctly, but that that to the extent that we can help voters delineate what affects them, what doesn't affect them, one of the things that will be immediately confusing to folks, I can tell you, is does Arizona do this stuff on paper? Oh, we don't think Arizona does this. Arizona's always done this stuff on paper. That's one of those myths that's out there. So sort of recapitulating, hey, look, no, this stuff we do. I mean, we have these things in place, so voters, when they go to our website, have the ability to make sure I know what affects me, if anything, what doesn't affect me, hopefully to the extent we can sort that out. But most importantly have, solid, neutral, reliable information.
And as far as the primary goes in the Grijalva election, independents will be able to vote to ask for either a Republican or Democratic ballot as they can in any other primary election. But that's something I think we're going to have to remind people about because
Yes.
they can never remember.
That's a good point, and I think we'll do that. And I think, and this is where I think, just if I can make a little pitch here for the debate program, this is one of the ways in which the debate program supports educating voters more broadly about who can participate in these elections, right? By having a program that highlights the fact there is an election, here are the candidates, it gives us all an opportunity to bring people in to talk about those things. But yes, you're absolutely right. Any registered voter who's an will be able to participate in the primary, and if they're an independent, they can select a Democratic or Republican ballot.
I have
Thank
a
you,
question, or
Commissioner Payne.
is there something that we can do to alert the media about that down there?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that
Maybe do a radio show or a TV,
yeah, sure.
whatever, get interviewed.
Yeah, no,
You're not wearing your beard, so you.
that's right. That's right. We had a PR consultant years ago who hated the beard. They really told me to get rid of it all the time. Yeah, I think that's something that we can help out with, and we'll try to. I think that what I think will be, one of the things that's good about campaigns is, generally speaking, candidates want people to vote, right? I mean, and so one of the things that we always try to bear in mind is that candidates, independent expenditure groups, other folks are all pulling in the same direction when it comes to, well, not all, but the mainstream ones that are following the rules are pulling, and the ones that are outside of that mainstream are usually not as effective as hopefully as so. I think that's something that we'll be working on in conjunction with our debate.
That election, there's going to be, in the Democratic Party primary,
Yeah.
there's going to be a handful of people, and I would think it'd be quite contentious, and
Yeah.
the independents
Yeah.
could really have a little power there for once.
Well,
I think there'll probably be primaries in both parties.
Yeah.
so
Before we move on from the executive director's report, Gina, I know you're with us remotely. Did you want to discuss at all your trip to Coconino County with Avery?
Hi, good morning, commissioners. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, it was Alec and I who were able to drive up to Coconino County and visit with the Coconino County Elections Department, their elections director and staff, as well as the Coconino County recorder, who is a newly elected recorder. This is part of our voter education plan for 2025 to go out to all 15 of our counties and meet with them directly and just get a better understanding of what our counties feel like they need from a voter education standpoint, but also to sometimes introduce clean elections. I believe we have upwards of maybe 6 new county recorders this year. So just making sure that our election partners understand what resources we provide, the type of work that we do, and how we typically partner with the counties. Again, with what Tom was referencing earlier, and Alec's ability to reach out to the counties and obtain that election information firsthand and quickly is critical to making sure that our website is updated accurately. But with Coconino County, we had a great opportunity to go and visit their new elections facility, which was phenomenal. We were able to see all of the security measures that they have in place and how they operate, how they count their ballots, their warehouse, basically everything that they have that is really important to the transparency of the process for the voters up there as well as the political observers. So in our conversations, we were able to, again, get down to what is it that the counties need in terms of voter education? How can we support you? What went well? What, were some of the challenges that you experienced in 2024? And what are opportunities to partner? One of the biggest takeaways that I think that we, heard is something that I think we've said all along. Our counties are so focused on putting the election on. That's where their resources are going to. That's what their staff hours are going to. They have to actually conduct the election. But we know that voter education is such a massive need because our voters need to understand how to participate in that process that the counties are putting on. And so it's been great to partner with the counties and support that. For example, Alec has worked closely with Coconino this year in developing new signage that is placed at the polling place that helps the voters understand, okay, where do I go? Where's the 75-foot limit? What IDs need? Things to that extent. And then just hearing from the new recorder too about, okay, these are some of the challenges that we are looking forward to this year that we expect. How do we talk to voters about these? One again being documentary proof of citizenship. How do we communicate that? How do we reach these voters specifically that might be a little bit more impacted, such as our college students? Our college students need a lot of help just with their situation. They're away from home the first time. They may not have immediate access to, their birth certificate, for example. Do they know where their permanent residence is? Are they living in a dorm? Do they want to vote back home? Just the process for our students and what that looks like. And again, having access to the information from the counties is immensely helpful to us. So for example, in this trip with Coconino, one of the things that we learned was Coconino has a very informative inversion map that showcases in each precinct, how did this precinct vote primarily? Was it in person on election day or was it early voting? That's helpful to us because then we know how to communicate with that area specifically. Do we need to really focus on here's your voting location on election day and here's the ID that you need, or do we need to focus on the messaging of return your early ballot by this deadline, don't forget to sign it, that type of thing. So understanding the behavior of voters, nobody knows that better than the county election officials. So those are just some of the examples of the discussions that came from our trip up to Coconino. Again, our goal is to visit all 15 of our counties and having this conversation with them to again understand directly from the source what is it that these voters needs. That will help shape our voter education and communication outreach to them, but again it also makes us available to support the counties in those voter education needs when they are so focused on actually conducting the election.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you for correcting me that it was Alec. I do want to note that you and Avery were at the Tucson Festival of Books with Captain Activate. Avery, if you're in a position to thank the captain, would you please do so? Yes, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the executive director's report? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4. discussion and possible action on proposed repayment order for Hector Jeremio, 2024 participating candidate for state legislature. The next matter is the executive director's request that the commission issue an order that a candidate repay clean elections funds. We have the executive director present, then Mr. Jeremio or his representative may speak if they're present. Craig Morgan is here and he will serve as the commission's independent advisor for this matter. If any member of the commission has any legal questions, please, after this presentation, address them to Craig. Tom.
Thank you, commissioners. What we have before you today is a proposed repayment order. We have in your packet, you'll see a couple of versions. There's a final 327 that I just want to note so everybody knows, and there's a strikeout version. We made some non-substantive strike-throughs at adding an apostrophe, making sure we have the interest statute correct, and some other typo type changes. So the order, but those are not. We don't find them to be substantive. But so that's what we're talking about is the document that's marked final 327. And you also have a memo that I drafted for you, and all of this information, the memo, the proposed order, were all sent to Mr. Jeremio, and we have confirmation of delivery to his address. We've also, and it's not, and I think that the memo and especially the audit report detail that this isn't our first effort to communicate with Mr. Jeremio. So we really, just to keep this as simple as possible, at some point after he received his clean elections funding, Mr. Jeremio stopped filing campaign finance reports. He never filed a campaign finance report related to the funds at all, nor how he spent them. And he has subsequently declined to participate with our audits. He's declined to respond to our staff inquiries. He's declined to respond to formal communications from me related to not just this repayment, but other aspects of this that we are concerned about as staff members. So in view of all that, the reality is that a person who signs up to be a clean funded candidate stipulates they're going to follow the rules, right? They sign what amounts to a contract with the state that says that they'll abide by the terms and conditions of the act. So it's not just that it is the law, it is in fact the law they've agreed to follow. It's a voluntary program, and the whole purpose of this is to ensure that there's more transparency in the campaigns, because the source of the dollars. They're coming from the people of Arizona, so we think this is we think from where we're sitting, this is a fairly cut and dry thing. We haven't heard from Mr. Jeremio. We haven't heard from any representative. I don't think there's anyone here or online. There are some folks here for other parts of this meeting, but as far as I know, no one on the line is here for that. So while one might say, hey, maybe we should take a break and see if we can get a hold of him, I would say that the record we've been able to provide to you in terms of documents demonstrate that that's not happening. And so we would encourage the commission to approve and sign the repayment order, the final repayment order. And that's really, unless you have questions, that's certainly the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So just to summarize, Mr. Jeremio was a candidate for State House in LD 24.
Yep.
He got, for the primary election, $31,760. We don't know what he did with it.
Right.
and he's now vanished.
That is accurate.
Okay. Do any members of and I forgot one point, he lost in the primary. if
He
I
did
didn't
lose in the
say.
primary.
Okay. Do any members of the commission have any questions of Tom as to the facts of this matter? Okay, thank you. Is Mr. Jeremino or any of his representatives on, they're certainly not in the room, are they on Zoom or anywhere else? If so, would you please raise your hand or make yourself known somehow? Not seeing any. Okay, so at this point, Tom, you're asking for a motion to
Oh,
what?
yes. I mean, our request is that the commission vote in favor of the repayment order and sign it and allow us to have it delivered to him properly.
Has anyone, no one's talked to him at all? I mean, do we even know he's alive or what do we know?
I think that I think that we've had a sort of a hang up call with him. My understanding, and obviously Mike has been on this as well, so if he can obviously interject if he wants to. But I think we have had a call with him where he kind of hung up, and so somebody connected with him. We have had a call with his treasurer, I believe, where we were apprised that that at least the treasurer was aware that this was an issue, and I don't want to. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection of that is the effect of that person told us, yeah, I know it's a thing. We'll get on it, kind of a thing. I think, is that a fair summary, Mike? in your
Yes,
view?
that's correct.
Yeah. So we don't have reason to believe that he is deceased. Anecdotally, he posts on the internet. He signed for the FedEx that we have. So, I mean, we believe that he is I don't want to overcharacterize this except to say that, I mean, we are absolutely confident that he knows this is an issue and that his agent, his treasurer, knows this is an issue. There is no way for him to have gone through the process of becoming a clean candidate without being aware that you had a minimum have to file the reports. And so, we really think that this is, I mean, let me put it this way. Our preference in general with any of these things, whether it's enforcement, audits, those kind of things, is to resolve them short of bringing them to the commission in this context. That's generally our preference. And if we felt like we had another way to do it, we would do it that way. But our real sense is that that we don't have we just have there's nothing we have evidence of that suggests that this pattern of behavior is going to change.
One other question, and I don't know if this is to you or to Craig, but you are not recommending a penalty. You're only recommending he repay the 31,000 plus. What can you speak to that?
So yes, on the executive director's report every month, we put active enforcement matters, which have an MUR number, and that's a complaint. There is a complaint pending against this candidate. What our point of view on this as staff is that sort of prioritizing here, the funding that he's received is our top priority to begin the process of recovering that. Whether or not this is a penalty, gets into a technical area related to, it's in the order around. I mean, so there's penalties in terms of what people can discharge and those kind of things. And so I just want to be clear that when we're talking about penalties in terms of the Clean Elections Act, we don't necessarily mean to say it's not a penalty for purposes of other, things down the road in terms of collection. But I think that our main goal here is to get ourselves on a road to recovery, and then see if we can, if we can, or if we have to, bring back an additional thing and an additional process. And I guess I can't really get much far beyond that, except to say that that's consistent with how we have handled at least the last repayment order we did. We handled it not precisely. I mean, there were different steps and different timing for things, but it's consistent with that. It's, now to be clear, and it's in the order, the repayment for these funds has to come from your personal funds, right? So this is not and the act makes that's expressed. So, in that sense, it's not nothing. It's not to say that, it's a real consequence. If somebody asked me if I needed to come up with $31,000 tomorrow, I mean, it would not be. Yes, that's a thing. That's a real thing, and so it's a serious thing. So I don't want to. I guess I also don't want to diminish what we're doing here in the sense that but we want to move in the way that best represents what we see as the Act's obligation on the agency to take care that the funds in the fund are protected, and to get us on the road to hopefully a resolution of this that is that will work.
I have a question.
Thank you. Commissioner Payton.
So this is how much we gave him.
Yeah.
He gave no receipts or anything showing that he paid for anything legitimately having to do with his campaign, correct?
Yes.
So if he came up with the receipts or whatever later on,
Yeah.
would we
Right. So
change that?
So from a staff perspective, the way this has happened in the past is we've done a repayment order where a person appeals, and on review, the administrative law judge there reduced the penalty, the repayment order by the amount of funds that the person was able to justify. I think like any, what we do as a practical matter with those kinds of things is, if it goes to that appellate process, that's one way to do it. If he were to, so it's hard to really foresee every instance, but
So
certainly,
that has nothing to do with the interest or penalties or anything. It's just, that's what he was given and he had no receipts for it.
well, he hasn't provided any.
Okay.
At all, and it does have to come out of his personal funds. There is an interest accrual on that.
Oh, okay.
So there's that. And then, like I say, I mean, your staff will, as we have in other situations this has arisen, we will look at this sort of in penalty enforcement provisions of our rules as far as what needs to happen next. And that's sort of a decision that we have to, sort of reserve our explicitness with you now about, in order to ensure that, we're playing our role as staff members, as the prosecutors in this matter, so to speak. It's not the right word, but it's the best word we can come up with. And you are in your position to make decisions about what we bring to you as an arbiter of this.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from members of the commission? Commissioner
wanted to
Werther?
Comment. Yeah, so I mean, I'm comfortable just reading through this, that notice has been provided. He's had ample opportunities to obviously respond and to file his reports. And so at this stage, if, we issue this repayment order, he still has his appeal options. So he could certainly make efforts to resolve it at that time.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from members of the commission? Does anyone wish to make a motion to approve Tom's request?
I motion to approve the repayment order.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the repayment order. I will call the roll. Commissioner Werther,
Aye.
Commissioner Payton,
Aye.
Commissioner Chan, Commissioner Chan.
Sorry, did that come through?
No, I don't know what your vote is.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Chair votes aye. The motion is approved 4-0. Thank you, Tom. Item 5, discussion and possible action on the following 2024 general election candidate audits. Mike and our auditors at Fester and Chapman have been reviewing general election clean candidates' financial records as part of our compliance process. The rules require those audits to be approved by the commission. And the audits that we're going to deal with today, just for the record, Joshua Ayala, State Senate District 11, Robert Doyle, State Senate District 10, Elizabeth Brown, State Senate District 14, Joseph Daly, State House District 11, Tenari Ochoa Martinez, State House District 29. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Tom or Mike or anyone else on the staff? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the audits that identified in item 5 of our agenda?
Sorry, I just wanted, can I?
Oh, I'm sorry,
I don't
Tom.
want to interrupt you. Apologize. I did want to note that Mr. Daly and Miss Ochoa Martinez are here. And we appreciate them coming. We did not find any issues with their audits, but I did want to recognize them, and I don't know if they have any comments.
Thank you for pointing that out, Tom. Do either one of our candidates have any comments they wish to make?
This is Joe Daly. I do not. I appreciate your work and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly, for your comments. Yes, Ms. Ochoa Martinez.
Good morning, commissioners. No, I was just wanting to be present. I've never been to a commission's meeting, so I thought it was a perfect excuse to join and learn from you guys. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate your attendance and your willingness to serve as a candidate. You too, Mr. Daly. So do I have a motion to approve these 5 audits?
Motion to approve the 2024 general election candidate audits in item number 5.
Thank you, Commissioner Werther. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Payton. It's been moved and seconded to approve the audits identified in item 5 of the agenda. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Werther,
Aye.
Commissioner Payton,
Aye.
Commissioner Chan.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The audits are approved 4-0. Item 7, public comment. This is the time for consideration of comments and suggestions from the public. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date or responding to criticism. Please limit your comments to no more than 2 minutes. Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to make a comment? Hearing none, we'll move along. The public may also send comments to the commission by email at ccec@azcleanelections.gov. This time I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Werther. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Payton. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. I will call the roll. Commissioner Werther,
Aye.
Commissioner Payton,
Aye.
Commissioner Chan,